Right here on the front row, big support, Colombian Weed Expo, Medellin Expo, Henry right here, a big support of the ICBC right here. Really appreciate you, Henry. I just got my new gaucho hat now, so we're ready to rock and roll. My name's Alex Rogers, I'm the CEO and I'm the founder of the ICBC. This is our 5th edition in Barcelona. We started, our first edition was 2018. We made a beautiful partnership with Cannabis, and we decided to rock and roll and bring B2B to Spain. I would like to thank the Tallman Group for sponsoring, being the head sponsor of the event. Go check them out. They got a booth here. We got a big party with DJ Muggs tonight at 9 o'clock. And I just want to say that, I heard some coffee shops got raided last night. Did anyone hear that? That some coffee shops got raided? It's so ironic. Here we are, and it feels like weed is legal, but I always say that the battle's just begun. So even when we make progress with policy, that's really when the work just begins, because the devil's in the details, right? And so they say implementation is 90% of the law, and so it's incumbent upon us to educate and push it out there in a Disir Babylon. You know what I'm saying? Because we all live in the institution, right? And we all have to stay strong and stand up. Now, in some ways, I think I'm preaching to the choir, because I think that's most of all of you right now, right here. We're not complacent. We stand up for what we believe in. And that's not just cannabis, that's human rights and treating each other with respect and dignity all the time. Right? Because unless you're a total asshole, then you can fuck off, right? But we have to have tolerance for people and things, and we have to understand that it's a magical miracle that we're all here together and have share this beautiful life on this planet for this brief time that we get here. So I just want to say thank you. I feel very blessed. I want to thank you all, and can you please give you all a round of applause? Thank you so much. So I'd like to, let's get it going, y'all. Y'all ready? Yeah. So let's get it going. I'd like to introduce first the MC of the ICBC for the last 10 years, my main man for 30 years. Everybody, please give a warm welcome to the one and only Ungayo Bila!
Once again for Alex Rogers and the whole ICBC team, they put this whole thing together. Spanish, man, it's always a pleasure to be here. So bienvenidos a Barcelona, and you're really going to enjoy yourself. We have a great group of panels and speakers today. It's going to be fantastic. A couple quick announcements. It says in the program that the party starts at 8. That's ridiculous. This is Barcelona. The party starts at 9, right? And that's still kind of early, but some of you are old. So, I include myself in that statement, right? So the party starts at 9 o'clock at the Edition Hotel. DJ Muggs is going to spin. It's going to be a great time. There'll be drinks and snacks and food and all the stuff. Bring your badge. You'll get in. It'll be fantastic. Also, tickets for Berlin are on sale right now. And Berlin is crazy because their legalization program is going forward. And so this is the time to go, to learn about how to get involved, to learn what to do, to meet all the people who are going to be involved in it. It's going to be great. So don't forget to get your tickets to Berlin. And also, like Alex mentioned, we'd like to thank our title sponsor, the Tallman Group, because they are also awesome. And this is how things get done. Come on in, everybody. So with that being said, let's just get it started. We have our keynote speaker. She's amazing. They say that knowledge is power, right? She knows a lot of things because she is the founder of New Frontier Data. So she can break down all the analytics for you and all the different things, and she's going to talk about a bunch of different things here. And she's also the principal at Blue Onyx Horizons, and I'd like you to put your hands together and welcome to the International Cannabis Business Conference, Giadha DeCarcer!
morning, good morning, good morning. I was talking outside and we were sort of reminiscing about, wow, it's been 10 years and I've had the privilege of attending the ICBC for a decade now, and it feels like a college reunion. It really does. It doesn't feel like work. It feels like fun. So thank you ICBC for having me. Very exciting time. Germany finally legalized recreational. And I am here today to help draw some parallels from what happened in the US after the first recreational legalization. What can we learn, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the risks and the opportunities from the experience that we can see from the United States and North America in general. Yep, it works. So, fun and games aside, we say that history repeats itself, and we're doomed if we don't learn from it. I believe that it creates a great opportunity for us here in Europe, given that we have our peers in North America that have truly had their first chance on making the mistakes, learned the lessons, and that if we look back, we may be able to expedite and maximize what we can truly do for the industry here in Europe. So, who am I? A little bit of background. Well, I've had the pleasure to see a lot of friendly faces. There are also a lot of new faces. So I came into the industry in 2014 in the US. I founded a company called New Frontier Data, and we were the first to come in trying to really look at raw data, draw analytics, and be able to predict where the risks and the opportunities would be. 2014 was an interesting year in North America because in 2012, Oregon and Colorado and Washington State were the first states to legalize recreational cannabis. Despite that California was the first to legalize in the 1990s, we really saw a shift in the marketplace, both from an investment and a new business perspective, really in 2013 and 2014. So I've had the privilege to sort of have a front row seat at what happened and what was the story. So what happened since? So I want to first take sort of a look at the globe and then bring it back to Europe. We have over 100 nations around the world that have either legalized or decriminalized cannabis today. I remember saying that there were 18 states. Now it's over 100 nations. We've gone a long way in just a decade. And what's happened in this last decade is we begin to see some regional trends with some specific specialization in each of these regions when it comes to the cannabis industry, which is really unique because the cannabis industry went from being an emerging market to a global phenomenon. So North America really sort of the epicenter of consumption. A lot of sort of plant-touching innovation and B2C sort of types of businesses. Also, North America continues to be the largest consumer market in the world. Mind you, Europe is expected to be the second largest. Then we have Latin America, where we have seen some serious deregulation, and they seem to be positioning themselves as more of a lower-cost cultivation hub, with an intent of really exporting to those consumer markets, so Europe and North America. Asia Pacific, very interesting region as far as the cannabis industry, really looking to focus in R&D, whether it is from medical use or industrial hemp applications. So we're seeing a lot of new IP in terms of the graffination of hemp, and we're also seeing some very advanced research in terms of the medicinal applications of cannabis for things such as cancer. Africa. Africa is very interesting as well. While there aren't as many nations that have legalized or decriminalized, Africa has been an agro-based economy as a whole, mostly dominated by tobacco cultivation. Given the decrease in tobacco consumption around the world, they have been looking for an opportunity to both diversify out of tobacco, but also, I must admit, cut the bonds from Chinese sort of financial dominance. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. And so they're looking at hemp as an opportunity to get out of that situation with the hope to also export low-cost hemp and cannabis to Europe, with, of course, some regulatory challenges they're still trying to work through. And last but not least, Europe. Europe is the big question mark. We all want to figure out what's going to happen in Europe. Europe is really specially positioned. Europe has had the opportunity to look and learn from what's happened around the world. They've taken their time, they've been very wise as the old nation, to wait for the right time. Europe also has the benefit of a very mature food and beverage and health and beauty industrial infrastructure, whereby those advanced application of cannabis for those sectors may be the true opportunity. So maybe it is a processing hub. Maybe it's a consumer goods export hub. The question mark remains, but the opportunities are certainly material. How material are they? The global cannabis industry today is at over 300 billion. It is massive, and that's a conservative number. Mind you, you're going to see a lot of numbers from a variety of data and analytics experts, which I'm very happy to see that since New Frontier Data was born, now there are many looking. But what we all agree on is that it's huge and that it's growing. Interestingly, look at Europe. Europe, it's almost a $70 billion opportunity. Mind you, that does include illegal use. And what we have seen in North America is as states were legalizing, there was about a 30% shift from illegal use to legal use. So there is a material opportunity, an early stage opportunity here in Europe. What else can we see from a trend perspective when we look at the US? Well, we talk about the 8-year economic cycle. Guess what? That really does work. It's real. Because that's what we saw in the US. From 2012 to 2020, we sort of saw a bell curve type of shift in terms of the volume of investment that went into the industry, the number of companies that started and went to market, as well as a quite diverse sequencing of shift of the types of businesses that were ripe to profit and succeed. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. So let's first talk about money. How did the capital markets in North America and the cannabis industry sort of advanced? You'll notice that the numbers do not start in 2012 or in 2014, and that's because the type of investments that went in early on in the cannabis industry were primarily from angel investors, some of them not even accredited, and they were really small checks. When I came in, I raised my first million about $25,000 to $50,000 at a time. It was gruesome. But that's what happened there. It was the green rush. There was money floating around. There were a lot of investors sort of writing checks, but they were small checks. So the overall amounts weren't large. We did begin to see a shift in 2015 and 2016. And what happened is the industry was getting smarter, and folks from outside of the cannabis industry, venture capitalists, created cannabis-specific funds. So this is still not non-cannabis. It's still not institutional investment per se. But it was beginning to sort of operate, these funds were beginning to operate like more mature venture capitalists. So they were starting to look at financials. It wasn't just about, ooh, you have cultivation and weed, let's invest. We started to begin to see sort of a shift in maturation. In 2017 to 2010 to 21 is where we really saw the boom. And if you look at the graph, you can sort of see that increase. So what happened? Well, first and foremost, institutional investors finally paid attention. They began to see consumption in the cannabis industry go up. They began to see states legalizing, being able to have extra revenue to spend in things like education and a decrease in crime. And so the interest was there. So number one, institutional investment came in. Number two, there was a beginning of sort of this idea of going public. I mean, it wasn't necessarily sort of the boom that we saw all the way in 2019 and 2020, but there was a shift. 2019 is where we really had an explosion, and that was absolutely driven by the public market, both in Canada and the United States, but mostly Canada. And then you see this drop in 2020. Yes, COVID happened. That's what happened, really. But what's interesting to note in 2020 is that the size of the checks, of the deals, were the largest ever in history. We're talking about $500 million plus. Then 2021, we saw sort of a continuations of that public market activity with a drop in 2022. Now, why the drop? Well, a variety of reasons. The biggest one is poor performance of companies. Companies were just not performing as well as the investors were expected. And those the institutional investors, that mature capital market that came in, were not okay with the financial performance and the ineffective operation of some of these businesses. Remember that the birth of the cannabis industry in the United States was really stemming from a movement. So the folks that came in were folks that, mind you, might have been in the illegal market coming in, so they weren't necessarily, Wharton graduates. Not that it matters, a lot of them succeeded, but overall they didn't have the level of sophistication in business to grow and scale a business, something that is probably going to be very different here in Europe. Another interesting thing to note about 2022 is that we begin to see a shift from equity to debt. Why? Well, again, equity was too risky. So operators that now really needed to scale and grow, especially from a surge of consumption during COVID, needed capital and they had nowhere to get it. And so they went for debt. And debt has become very expensive since. So in the United States today, you have a really, really tight capital market. And many of those operators are coming into Europe where they feel there's more opportunity, there's more liquidity. So both from an operator perspective and an investor perspective. So it doesn't matter if you're looking to invest or if you're looking to put in a business. What can we learn from what happened in sort of that 8 to 10 year experience in the US? Well, that 2012 to 2015, as I mentioned, really angel investment, small checks, seed, the green rush. If it was cannabis, you were in. Great. Well, here in Europe, arguably, we've kind of gone through that. Honestly, we skipped the green rush because of all the reasons I mentioned before. This is already a market that is starting from a much more mature position. The operators and the investors that are looking at this space are either coming from the US or North America, where they've already learned their lessons and earned their stripes, or they are mature investors and operators already established in Europe that are looking to diversify into the cannabis space. So let's say that we skipped it. Now, I put in the European opportunities sort of still a little bit to the left because there still are some seed and plant touching opportunities. But I believe that we truly are in sort of that second phase, and what we saw in the US between 2016 and 2018, where it really is post-seed, not so much plant touching, right, especially in Europe. Still some plant touching, but really we're looking at more sophisticated business and value propositions that truly are looking to support those plant touching operators in the plant touching vertical of the industry. Other things that are very unique to Europe and that we saw in the second phase in the US is this introduction of hemp. Specific, not some hemp for CBD, of course, medicinal use in Europe is extremely important, but advanced industrial applications that the European market today has the benefit of really capitalizing on because research and development has had 10 years to evolve around the world, and not necessarily specifically in the United States or North America. A lot of it is happening in Asia Pacific. And last but not least, real estate. Interestingly enough, real estate in the United States, well, it seems like a no-brainer, right? If you're cultivating or you're processing, you obviously need real estate. How come there's not a lot of investment in it? Well, lessons learned tell us real estate is going to go up, and it's going to be very interesting once we reach that apex of consumption in Europe. Real estate is definitely something that Europeans have an opportunity to look at right now as it pertains to the cannabis space. And then in the US, between 2019 and 2022, what we saw, as I mentioned, really the public market. But specifically, we saw the emergence of REITs. We saw the emergence of ETFs specific to cannabis. Lots of SPACs, for better or for worse. And I don't have time to dive deeper into it, but the SPACs phenomenon in the United States when it comes to cannabis was quite tumultuous, let's just say. And a lot of M&A and IPOs. And the M&A was really sort of a consolidation phenomena, whereby unfortunately the smaller companies or the companies that weren't able to scale and grow or secure capital to scale and grow were absorbed by others or went out of business. And we are still at that stage, I would say, in the United States today. Some very high-level key lessons learned. And mind you, I expect that the audience today is sophisticated, and some of this is going to feel like a duh, we know that. But this is more a way to look at what happened in the US and the mistakes that we did make there, and the lessons that we learned from those mistakes. And also after 10 years at looking at DEX and, for better or for worse, raising capital, these are sort of the things that truly rose to the surface as far as not what to do and not to do at this point in Europe. So do's: honest and diverse leadership. That may seem sort of like a silly thing to say or an obvious statement. It isn't. The cannabis industry, for better or for worse, is still a little shady. It's still a gray area. So having an honest and diverse, given that it's a global industry, and mind you, I'm a woman, and I'm a half Cuban woman, so that's also very dear to me. But diversity and honesty in the industry from a leadership perspective is extremely important in order to have a successful business, if you believe in karma, but also to have the trust of an investor and the capital market. Knowledgeable and professional management may also seem obvious. But guess what? In the cannabis industry, you do need those folks that are veterans in the cannabis industry that understand the plant, that understand the market, that understand the consumer. But you also need folks that truly understand business and mature business, because the competitive environment today is much tougher than it was when I came in 2014. You have pharmaceutical, you do have health and beauty, you have food and beverage, you have some serious money and knowledge that is interested in this space. So your management needs to be up to the task of navigating it and defending your position. Clear and substantiated, and this is something that's true in cannabis and it's true anywhere else. And before preparing for this chat, I did kind of call all my pals that are still investing in cannabis and not in cannabis. And I kind of, I asked the question, what are the 3 things that are really sort of make it or break it for you in your thesis of investment, regardless of what you're investing in? And they said 3 things. Number 1, clear market understanding. What that means is if you're in the cannabis industry, choose your vertical. Don't be like all over the place. You want to be vertically integrated? Great. Be very clear and be able to substantiate what your target addressable market is. Because there are a lot of shiny objects in the cannabis industry, and they'll continue to be, and they're very distracting. And investors do not like distraction, and distraction leads to inefficiency for operators. 2, clear and substantiated product. What is it that you do? I don't think doing it all is really the way to go. That may have worked in the United States 10 years ago, but today, I think in Europe, there's really an opportunity to specialize. And the deeper and the niche, the more niche you are, the more likely you're going to be able to defend and plant that flag. Traction. And this is something that definitely wasn't on the board 10 years ago, because it was new. How do you prove traction? Well, now you can. And the investors are expecting you to prove it and substantiate it. Have that pilot. Show what your consumer wants in that engagement, because it's going to be expected. It isn't the green rush anymore. The don'ts. Well, alas, a good idea is not necessarily a business. A business needs a business plan. I mean, I remember my first pitch was in Austin, Texas in like 2014. I was the only woman on stage, and I was the only one talking about something that didn't involve smoking it. In fact, someone on stage, and I tell this a lot, literally booed and said, if we can't smoke it, we don't care, because I was talking about data. But at that point, basically, if you had a PowerPoint and it said cannabis in it, it was a business plan. Well, that's no longer the case. You need a real business plan. Maybe not a 50-page PDF, but certainly something that's well thought out with a mission, a vision, an actual financial plan. I mean, all of the sort of infrastructure of a real house when it comes to a business. 2, competition cannot be ignored anymore. It is a global market where you're getting competitors no longer just locally or across the street. Your competition is regional and global. And that makes it that it leads to number 3, that you need to be extremely thoughtful about your strategy. So businesses that do not have a very, very clear operational, financial, and strategic plan are not only likely not to be of interest to a sophisticated investor, but also likely not going to be able to truly make it and succeed in the cannabis industry today. So yes, history does repeat itself, but every time it does, the price goes up. And I think that for us, that means that we can make more money. So I wish for all of you to be very successful and very profitable in the cannabis industry in Europe. And thank you so much.